you want to go multi-chain, you can go on Verabridge. In one click,
Yeah.
your token is now multi-chain. We deploy the bridge for you. Like, there's a lot of bridging protocols that can't necessarily do that, or they couldn't before. We built that for Hyperlane initially. But the problem you have with that is like your token is now on this new chain, like on BSC or something like that, but people can't access the liquidity. Well, okay, I could call up the intent provider and be like, hey, can you add my token, please? Or you could just like put your token address on Veraswap and it'll work.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Colors of Web3 and Entrepreneurship. My name is Lum, your Web3 host. This is episode 72. For those of you who are new to the show, Colors of Web3 and Entrepreneurship is a show highlighting the journeys of Web3 builders and innovators in Web3 and entrepreneurship. Some topics, especially in Web3, may get technical, but we do our best to keep it accessible for most people. Here today, I'm joined by Leo Vigna. He's the CEO and co-founder of Veraswap. Leo, could you give a quick introduction by yourself?
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Lam, for introducing me. My name's Leo. I got into crypto back in 2017. First buying a little bit Bitcoin and then I got into crypto at ETH Denver 2020. So I did ETH Denver 2020 back then. I won third place with my team. Started out Vulcan Link, which is a Chainlink node operator that's been operating for 5 years. And then more recently, past 3-4 months, a small team and I that I worked with in the past, we're building Veraswap, which is a cross-chain DEX that lets you buy any cryptocurrency from any chain. So you could have USDC on Polygon and buy wrapped Bitcoin on Base, Arbitrum, 20 different chains. And we're using Uniswap and Hyperlane, which is a bridging protocol, to make it very seamless. And you can also eventually will have option to buy with fiat as well. So that's what we're focused on. Also happy to talk about just like general trends in the industry. Always open to you. Interesting discussions.
Nice. Yeah, for sure. I think, before we get into a lot of the Web3 technical stuff, but yeah, I think our viewers would be interested in getting to know more about you. Could you share with us? So you said you got in crypto in 2017. You said you went to college in the US, right? Maybe.
Yeah. So I started. Yeah. So I was born in France, but I lived in New York when I was very young. And then I came back to France, went to international school there. And then I went to UPenn, so Warren Business School and UPenn Engineering. So I did computer science and finance there. And so, yeah, that's why I got the Bitcoin, because I was like, I want to go party in the US. But then I seriously got into Bitcoin more in 2020, I would say. Like people say, oh, I got into crypto, but that's just when they bought crypto. But like in 2020, I actually started programming. So I read, I don't know if you know Andreas Antonopoulos. He's like a very famous, a Greek. Yeah. So I read Andreas. Yeah. So I read Mastering Bitcoin and Mastering Ethereum. So I learned Solidity that way. And that's how I kind of got more into the weeds of it. I also love the economics of Bitcoin. So I read the Bitcoin Standard by Seyfedin Ammous. And then more also non-crypto related economics books, like things related to Austrian economics, like, I don't know if you know Friedrich Hayek, like The Road to Serfdom and stuff like that. And so those were very interesting to me in terms of like, okay, there's like Bitcoin, people look at the chart, but like, what is the kind of long-term impact on like society of this technology? And so I felt like for many years I wanted to have a startup, and I was always looking back like, 1999 internet bubble, I missed that. I was too young. And I was like, when's my, big wave of innovation coming? And that felt like, my generation's new wave of innovation. And so I did the hackathon, started the Chainlink node operations, scaled that out during COVID, work remotely, just like building, adding more data feeds. Like we provide crypto prices for DeFi protocols. Like that's the Chainlink, right? And then started Veraswap like about 4 or 5 months ago because I was kind of bored, like all the Chainlink stuff was like automated. So, we started building Veraswap. I don't know, that was a bit long. I don't know how briefly you want me to.
I think that's good. I mean, you can
I tend to go off on tangents sometimes. So
yeah, it's fun. It's fun to go on tangent on some of these his history, because it's really interesting when you use it. Maybe pick up.
It's been like 5 years, I would say, that I'm seriously in crypto. Long story short.
I see. And you said you joined, was it Hackathon, right? And then with
so I ETH Denver. So ETH Denver, we built. So ETH Denver is this one of the biggest hackathons in the US. So that was like my first time actually not just buying crypto, but like programming in Solidity. And there we built an app. So my team and I, so it's funny. So what happened is So I wrote this blog post about Chainlink, like I was just learning about it, and this team, this Australian Chainlink node operator that was already a node operator, they saw me and they DM'd me on like Discord or Telegram, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to come to the hackathon?" Right? And they were like, "We'll pay for your flights from Philadelphia to Denver. We'll pay for your hotel." Like I'm this broke college kid, right? Like I'm like I don't know, a junior in college, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, awesome, I'll do this. I'll skip classes for like a day or two and just it's like 4 days." And so I went with their team, and then we built watch to earn with Twitch. So what we do is you have this like Twitch stream, and like I'm the streamer, and like you can go and like type in like a small like command, and they would generate a wallet for you, like tied to a Twitch account. And then through Chainlink, the whole point of Chainlink is connecting like web APIs, right? The Web 2 with blockchain. It would track like how much time you watch, and it would mint you like tokens. So each creator would have their own token. So you could be like incentivizing people to watch. What was very interesting is it was built into Twitch, right? We're not building a like separate platform. It's just an add-on. And so we built that with Chainlink. And so we won like third place there. You can look it up. It's like, I think it was called Medici, Medici. So that was like 2020 finalist. And so there I learned about Chainlink, and then I started Vulcan Link as a node operator, right? So providing infra for DeFi protocols. So we do, I don't know, 500, 700 data feeds that do like, cryptocurrency prices, but Chainlink has expanded now. So there's foreign exchange prices, commodity prices, some more exotic things like proof of reserves and stuff like that. What else is there? There's essentially a lot of data feeds that, secure those like collateralized lending platforms like Aave, right? And for those who don't know, lending platforms will happen is like I put up Ethereum as collateral, and then I can borrow dollars. This way you have a lending platform, but there's no there's no bank really. But for that to work, that code that runs on the blockchain needs to know what the price of Ethereum is consistently, right? Because if it goes below a certain point, the collateral gets sold off. That's what secures the loan. And so Chainlink is the protocol that secures that. And we're an operator there. There's like about 50 to 70 node operators. So that was the hackathon, and then my Chainlink story, essentially.
Makes sense. Yeah. I think for those who may not be like familiar with like no operator there, could you explain what does it mean?
Yeah, so,
what does it
what
take?
it means, that's a great question, especially because it's very different from how running a node works with like things like Ethereum. So when people say running a node, it really means running the computer, right? From the most abstract sense, because these blockchain networks, they're not made out of thin air. There's actual like, hardware that backs it. The difference between Chainlink and like something like Ethereum or most of the other staking based node operators. So the way Ethereum node operators work, so it used to be proof of work, right? Which is what Bitcoin has, which is like you spend a lot of compute. Now, for a few years, it's been proof of stake, where you have to put 32 Ethereum and you put that on the node, you stake it. And then as the node is up, it earns interest, right? And so as you stake, as your node is up, it earns Ethereum. And if it goes out, if it goes down, server goes down, you start getting penalized, right? That's how Ethereum works. So what's interesting about Ethereum is it's decentralized. As long as I have the ETH, I can provide it, right? I can set up a node and stake. So Chainlink, anyone can run a node. So anyone can run a node technically, but the way you query the data as like I'm Aave, I'm the DeFi protocol, the lending platform that wants the data. The way you query that is you pick a specific node operator, or just a set usually, right? There's these official data feeds managed by Chainlink. And so you need also to have access to that data. Not every Chainlink node is the same. This is the difference. Like Ethereum, every Ethereum node is essentially a copy, right? Even though it has a different like owner, but they're all copying the data. Chainlink, we each have our own source of data that we provide. So if you're doing it like professionally as an official node operator, you essentially get these very expensive commercial data licenses that can go from like, I don't know, like $1,000 a month to like $10,000 a month, like really varies. That do things like stock prices, because you're licensing the data and you're using it for business purposes. So it's not like you can just go on like CoinGecko and get a little price feed there. And so you get these commercial licenses, and then we aggregate a bunch of that data and offer that to our clients, essentially, the DeFi protocols that request the data. And so that's how you run the node. And then also you have to run a blockchain node so that it sees a request incoming on the blockchain, calls the Chainlink node to query the data, and then sends a data update to the smart contract. right? So it's kind of the bridge between the Web2 APIs and the blockchain. Cool. But it's mostly automated now, right? We have a whole system set up for that. Like we manage it day to day, of course, but there's not that much engineering effort that's involved.
Okay, I see. And I guess the main benefit for no operator is like, do you get reward?
Yeah, we get remunerated in Chainlink, right? So our clients pay us in Link tokens, and we ensure data uptime with that, and also we do boot up like new data feeds and stuff time to time, right? Like as new cryptocurrencies emerge, as new chains emerge. And there's also protocol upgrades time to time. Things like CCIP, the bridging protocol. What else is there? Chainlink VRF, like provable randomness. Like those are also other products. I just talk about the price feeds mostly because it's the most famous product of Chainlink by far, I think in terms of usage. But there's also a bunch of other infra that we provide.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's really cool. I remember reading a lot of the Chainlink documentation, but I actually I don't think I've ever found anything about like being a node operator. Yeah, so that's interesting. First time like seeing this. Yeah, that's quite cool. Yeah. So you said there's like a bunch of other people.
Yeah, so it's not as like, again, there's like probably like, you can look this up on like, if you go to, I think it's data.chain.link or feeds.chain. I think it's data.chain.link. There you can see all the data feeds, and if you click into a data feed, you can see who the node operators are. I can screen share that to you if you're interested.
Sure. Yeah. I think you can see like who doing it, but again, like I'm saying, like how to actually become one.
Yeah. So how to run? So that you would. So how to run a node, you can figure out on GitHub, right? Like there's open source, like you can run a node. How to become a node operator? In 2025, it's more like. You have to prove, like usually you have to be another node operator for another protocol at this point.
I see.
Like you can run a node, but like my point is to become an official node that's providing critical data for like billion-dollar DeFi protocols. You kind of have to prove yourself in terms of like security, because like if you start reporting wrong data, that's like risk to the protocol, right? So
makes sense. Yeah.
There usually it's like a lot of staking providers, stuff like that. Will look to do that.
Okay, makes sense. Cool. Yeah, and then so after the Chainlink, you build out your product, and then afterward, like what happened after that?
After that, I essentially like Chainlink, scaled that out. During COVID, more chains, more data feeds, and after that, I was kind of figuring out like what to build. So I played around with a few projects. So I was building this project called Aave Protocol, which is still live. Like technically, the platform works. Yeah. It's a developer platform that has APIs for like wallet as a service, NFT issuance, indexing. Like you can fetch a user's token balances. So a lot of neat tools like that. For account abstraction, we ran our own bundler, so you can have users do transactions on the blockchain without gas fees. It's a very competitive space. Like there's very big players out there already. So we've kind of like pivoted a little bit of our effort. So we do have a few customers using it right now, but we were thinking like we want to build something more in the DeFi space. And really the challenge of bridging was very interesting. And we won this hackathon at Token 2049 last year in Singapore from Hyperlane, which is a bridging protocol that powers like a bunch of chains. They're probably one of the most connected chains. They're a bit less famous than Layer 0, but I think they're the most developer friendly. Because kind of like the question you asked me about Chainlink, like Hyperlane, like you can set up Hyperlane like locally if you're building. Like if you're a developer personally, a big thing for me is like to be able to just get everything working on my computer. Like I don't want to have to I want to be able to build my app in the airplane, like without any Wi-Fi. Like if you can get that set up, that's very powerful because it means that like you have everything set up on your computer. Yeah. And so a lot of these other protocols, like they're not very clear about like how do I deploy a token? Like how do I deploy a bridge? Do I have to call them or can I do it myself? Hyperlane is very open about this. And so we were able to build a lot of things during the hackathon. And then we kind of expanded and built Veraswap as a more production version of that. And it's just essentially a cross-chain DEX that leverages Uniswap. But also bridging, and you click one button and you can trade assets across different chains very easily.
Cool. Makes sense. Yeah, cool. So before we go into that, maybe just one fun personal question. Right now, are you based in US, France, or like moving around?
Great question. I am a little bit everywhere. I'm mostly based out of Dubai. Nice. I moved there after COVID. Right now, I am in the US because I was at ETH Denver, and then I'm here for New York Tech Week, and then I was also doing this just some fundraising in the Valley in SF.
I see.
But I'm mostly in Dubai, or also I go to Asia frequently when there's Token 2049 in Singapore. That's a big conference I like to go to. So pretty nomadic, and then I go back to Paris as well to see my family. So I'm going to Paris a little bit after this. So team's kind of remote, mostly out in Europe, in France, but we're all pretty international. So we are, we have a good work setup, I think.
I think that's really cool. Living the nomad life. Can you share with us what you do for fun in your free time?
For fun? So I play chess. I've been playing chess pretty well, since I was a kid. I play competitively. I went to World Youth Chess Championship when I was a kid.
Really?
In Turkey.
Impressive.
I didn't win. I just participated. I got qualified at least. But
I think that's an honor still.
But I was like, chess doesn't make money. I'm gonna stick to tech. Anyways, but
I think they do, right? But you have to be the top. I don't know, probably top. I don't know.
I'm just saying, unless if you're Carlson, let's be real, I had chess teachers that were French chess champions back in their youth, and then now they're just whatever. I don't want. It's just I got into tech. Tech was my thing, and chess was fun. I swim a lot as well. I used to swim a lot. Nowadays, it's a bit more difficult as I move around. And then, I don't know. I'm pretty workaholic, to be honest.
Nice.
I would say. I don't know. I feel like it's trendy to have all these tech, these CEOs be oh, I have my work-life balance or whatever. I let's say the Jamie Dimon, who's oh yeah, you got to work. If you're in your 20s, you would be successful. There's no if you want to be successful, you can't have a balanced social life. You're gonna be you're gonna be crazy on the grind. I don't know. Maybe
for sure
content, but
no, I think I do agree. I think people who really obsessed about one thing make great founder also. I don't think it's feasible or even possible to have a successful product without being obsessive.
Do you know the meme? Have you seen the meme with the guy who wakes up in the morning and he washes his face with sparkling water? It was super trendy a few months ago. That's what I'm talking about, right? That's this is bullshit.
That's BS. I know. Obviously. I think we both know that. That's just for what is it in Instagram basically?
Yeah, it's just influencer.
It's just for influencer. Exactly. I don't think those guys know anything.
So that was my point essentially when you were asking about the fun thing. But I've been in New York. I like New York. New York. There's always a lot of things to do. So a lot of cool restaurants and stuff. I see some friends from college here. From UPenn, there's a lot of people who work in New York here.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, but I think I feel if you're really good at chess, it also help a lot with logic as well, right? And thinking in general with math
for
and
sure.
engineering. So
a lot of patience, I would say, especially because chess has become kind of trendy since the Queen's Gambit. The
TV show, right?
But everybody I know that got into chess from that, they're just playing Blitz, which is fine. You rapid chess. But when I was a kid, I would play fucking 6 hours. 6 hour game. One day you play one game, and then for 1 week you do that every day of the week, and you're 14. As a kid. So that was you have to really sit still.
It's true. I think with
a lot of discipline
with the rise of social media, a lot of things just become more fast paced, right?
Your attention span,
right? Exactly. Yeah.
Man,
I think that's why
that and AI. Man, that and AI is me, it's very helpful for certain things, but I think about so I met these college kids at this hackathon a few weeks ago. I was and they were they're not that much younger than me, but I'm they're I had this essay, I just had it on ChatGPT. I'm I had to do research for this, I had to go to the library, get some sources, quote the documents. They're boop, boop, boop. That's it. And that's like really terrifying to me because like it's not that AI is becoming smarter, it's that humans are becoming dumber.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's kind of a mind-blowing thing, but like I think that's happening because you
it's true. Actually,
get so addicted to it, right? It makes it so easy.
Yeah, I think one of the like biggest consequence of I think AI is like large language model is that it reduces humans' ability to think, right? Because you're over reliant. You have like an walking or like a living encyclopedia almost, and then you can ask it any question, and then you just forgot how to think. I remember it's just same as you when I was in college. I always you had to go to the library, do research, do the proper quotation, and sometimes like you didn't have like large language models. You just had the internet, but like that's about it.
And then I think that the subtle difference is like, see, like Wikipedia, I thought it was like a good thing. Like you shouldn't copy paste it, but it was always a good way to get a copy. But the difference with LLM is it's not just the encyclopedia. It will just like shape it exactly the way you want it, right? It will like, you'll tell like, I want this, and then it will like create something brand new, but that's not really new. Anyways, AI is very interesting to me. I try not to get too focused on it because I feel like sometimes people get obsessed with it and don't worry about anything else happening in the world. But it's definitely
I think
a trend.
Another danger with some of these large language models that sometimes they don't know the answer, they probably will not admit, and then like hallucinate, and then you don't know what is like true, what's real, right? So you have to like fact check yourself.
There's been cases where lawyers have been like using ChatGPT, and then they got like punished because the AI just invented cases.
Yeah.
And they would submit that to the judge, and the judge is like, "Wait, this isn't real." You could get disbarred. I mean, if you do it like seriously.
Yeah, for real. Oh man, scary. Anyway, cool. Yeah. So without further ado, let's go ahead and deep dive into your current protocol company, Veraswap. Yes. Feel free to share any presentation.
I can share. Yeah, demo, let me share and do a quick feedback.
Background. Yeah.
Give me a second. Oh, there we go. So welcome to Veraswap. So we're still building Veraswap, just as a quick heads up. We're still going to go audit, so maybe don't rush to it right now. But our whole goal really is to have a simple UI that is there's a success that lets you kind of pick tokens and buy other tokens on other networks, right? So let me connect my wallet. Let me see. Am I connected? Yeah, this is the wrong. Give me a sec. I'm going to connect my wallet that's on because this is a
sure.
This is a test wallet.
Yeah.
Should have some tokens.
Yeah.
Up, and I'm going to be on. Let's go on base.
Base.
We can be on mainnet.
Okay.
Let me see my keyboard. Okay, so this is I'm on base right now, right? And I have USDC, and I want to get this is the Hyperlane token, for example. So we use Hyperlane as the bridging protocol. So Hyperlane is nice because it's like on many chains.
Yeah.
And so here you're going to execute a swap from base to from USDC to Hyper on base, and then bridge the token to OP mainnet, right, on Optimism. And so here, so you can't see this, but I'm getting the MetaMask pop up right now to confirm.
Yeah, to confirm. Yeah.
But so I just click confirm, and so now the swap starts executing. This will execute, and then after that, the bridge will automatically. I don't have to click any more buttons. This like automatically executes. This takes about I think 2 minutes because of the speed of the two chains, and we're hoping to get this much faster to like 500 milliseconds, maybe a second in the future, because we're also part of the Superchain incubator. So this is, I don't know if you're familiar with this. So this is, we're working tightly with the Superchain.
I'm familiar with Superchain, yeah.
So Superchain ecosystem is the general ecosystem that combines all of the chains that use OP stack, right? So you have mainnet, but also Inc, the Coinbase chain, Unichain, Sonium, the Sony chain, Mode, Zora, all these chains. And Superchain is going to have this upgrade, chain interop. So Superchain has in their timeline this feature called superchain interop. So this is very technical. I won't go too much into detail about this, but the idea is that all of these chains will be connected with their own bridging protocol that is native to superchain. Because today we use Hyperlane, which is great. We love Hyperlane because Hyperlane is connected to all of these chains, right? But if we can use superchain interop, then we can get like 500 millisecond bridging. And so this transaction that is taking oh shit, it got reverted.
Oh, I see.
Live demo.
What
I think sometimes it fails. I think the price moved, and so I didn't have enough slippage. Let me try again.
I see. What's the reason why it might be taking like 2 minutes? Is it because like you need to jump some hops and
you need to wait for a confirmation, right? So this is really not up to us. This is more the bridging protocol. So when you're using like when you have a bridging protocol, a cross-chain messaging protocol, you have to make sure that the blocks are confirmed, right? The same way that you wait for your Bitcoin transaction or Ethereum transaction to go through. But here it has, there it goes. So this was much faster. See, sometimes, so now the bridging transaction is going through. And so you can see on Hyperlane, we had USDC, we got our Hyper tokens, and now those are going to get bridged, but it takes a bit of time because it has to wait for the confirmation both on base and
on the destination chain, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Makes sense.
So I guess it's arriving now.
Got it. So I guess it's different from I guess most of what people are been using is like the intent-based bridging, right? That one is faster, yeah.
Yeah. So talking about intents. So the way intents work is the speed will vary. Usually it can be fast or less fast depending on the risk the solver is willing to take. So they might be like, hey, 1 confirmation is enough for me instead of 3 confirmations, for example. And then the other thing is when you're doing intents, you're really trading with like a market maker that's off chain. And that is like, you know, you're on like chain, you're on like, Ethereum and you want, some USDC on base. You just pay them on Ethereum. They just have to wait for that. And then they send you the tokens. They don't have to wait for two settlements. And the one issue with that is like for USDC it works, but for like altcoins and stuff like that, it doesn't necessarily work because like they might not be holding that asset. Now there are ways around it because like you could like bridge the USDC and then execute a DEX swap potentially if there's a DEX pool there. But what we're trying to do really is build a hybrid system. So eventually we'll probably add intent providers as well. But we want a system that has like always a fallback because this way we can add new chains very quickly. We don't have to rely on intent providers. And we can roll out chains as quickly as possible. One thing we're looking into is also enabling a kind of smoother UX. This is very experimental, but one where you just pick what token you want to buy, but you don't think about what currency you put in as the input, right? So in the UX I showed you, like it's kind of traditional DEX UX. You put USDC, I want, wrap Bitcoin or whatever. But here the idea is like rather a kind of quick checkout experience where you're like, I want to buy this token, and then we automatically scan your wallet, and then based on what you have, we're trying to like, with your heuristic, we're like, oh, you have USDC, let's just spend the USDC because that's like the fiat token that people use, right? And what's interesting with that is you could have systems where like we pull funds from multiple chains, and then one thing we're exploring is eventually helping you buy baskets of assets. So this is kind of something we hacked around recently. It's kind of not ready for release. But the idea of like, hey, instead of buying 1 token, I can buy like the top 10 tokens, like the top 10 crypto CoinGecko tokens. So that's very interesting to me because like if I'm a new user and I don't know what to buy, it's kind of nice to have this kind of like, oh, I'll buy an index of tokens. And also in the future, who knows, we might have stocks, bonds, and stuff like that on chain. So that could make it so that you could have like diversified portfolios on chain. Because in my view, like what I'm really passionate about is just building things that are very make it very accessible for people across the world to access kind of financial technology or information technology. So Chainlink for me was like, I was a developer and I was like, oh, I've built regular websites. How do I get access to Web2 data on chain? I don't know how to do that. I know how to do ERC20, but how do I get like crypto price info or just any API, like Twitch API, right? When we built the Hackathon project. So that was my problem. That's why I built the Chainlink node up. And my new problem now is like, okay, friend is like, oh, I want to buy crypto, but like they're either like, oh, crypto's too risky, right? It's too volatile for me. Or they're like, I don't know what to buy. Well, so I don't know what to buy. You can solve that problem right now. You can be like, hey, you get an index, you can buy a little bit of everything. And then too risky, once you get stocks and bonds on chain, now you can build an actual retirement portfolio that's not just meme coins, but that's really backed by like, I don't know, just like tech stocks or just like S&P 500, but represented as tokens. I'm not going to go into the regulated side of that business. No way. I don't like that. That's too complicated for me. But we're hoping that like companies like Coinbase or Securitize or others start issuing these in a permissionless manner, and that we can then build more access, build UIs that make it very easy to manage your portfolio.
I see.
That's kind of long-term future.
I see. Yeah, but for now, I think for the time being, I think you want to build this out and then maybe integrating the intents into it, right? Is that what? So
intents, we're going to add intents for sure. We're just working on like re-engineering a few things. Like the big thing for us right now is trying to add support for more tokens, especially like because right now this demo is like on Uniswap V4 only, and so we're going to add support for Uni V3 because it was still a massive amount of liquidity that's on Uni V3. So there's been a protocol upgrade. Uniswap went from V3 to V4 like 3 months ago. So there's some liquidity on V4 pools, but a bunch of it is still on V3. So we got to add that. Then we might add intent providers, and then also like some better account abstraction to like sponsor gas fees. That's kind of the short term plan.
For sure. Yeah, I think
that'll be done like in a month or two, probably.
Okay. Yeah, I think you touch upon some great points over there. I think with V4, there's like Uniswap hooks, right? There's some improvement.
So V4, So V4, the main improvements of V4 are, so hooks is the most popular one that Uniswap is promoting the most because that's the one where there's the most network effects. So the idea of hooks is like you can build like custom logic that will kind of customize how Uniswap works. Like for example, you could build a pool that's like a very basic example is you could build a pool that's like KYC only. Okay, so if you're building a pool, but it's like for a regulated asset, you could be like, hey, access list, ban list, whatever. You could build a pool that has like a different reward mechanism where like if you add liquidity early on, you get to farm some tokens or get additional rewards. Really anything, sky's the limit. That's very difficult. Like I've been doing a little bit of research, but also the main issue is that like, so if you add a hook, that creates like a new pool, right? You can't build a hook into like an existing pool. And so you have to like get it audited, and then like Uniswap has to kind of like bless it in the sense like my point is like for it to attract liquidity, right? So like if there's an existing like default no hook ETH pool versus one with hook, if I'm the liquidity provider, I'm just gonna put in the official one, right? I'm not gonna put in the like exotic one that I don't know. Like so, but this is still very early. Don't get me wrong. Like I talked to like Sauce, like the core protocol developer. He's from like Uniswap Foundation, and he runs a big initiative there. It's just like a big education step because like you have to understand how Uniswap works, and then once you tweak it, like what are the impacts, right? But I think it's very interesting how they're opening up the protocol. I think it will kind of kill anyone who's trying to build like Uniswap for X because it becomes really pointless in my view. And I think that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing because like it just aggregates liquidity and makes it more efficient. What I mean by that is like there's a lot of protocols that are trying to be like, hey, we're Uniswap, but like we slightly changed the like reward mechanism or the pricing function or something like that. Well, now that's all over. I mean, in my opinion, because like if you're trying to build that, you should just build a hook, and you can make fees off of that still, right? I think it's much more synergistic, symbiotic that system with hooks. The other upgrades that V4 brings, they're more technical upgrades, but they're still very interesting. One is you have native Ethereum pools. So before, when you were swapping ETH, you were actually swapping wrapped ETH. So it would actually make the transaction cost slightly higher. You as a user, you wouldn't see this, but it would just like wrap it as an ERC20 and then unwrap it as an ERC20. So that would impact gas costs. And then the other one is similar, related, is it uses flash accounting so that you have a single contract. So before V3, the big upgrade of V3, very famous one was concentrated liquidity, which means that people can add liquidity at specific price points And then if the price goes up, like that liquidity is no longer active. So it reduces impermanent loss, creates deeper liquidity. But you would still have individual pools. So if I create, you have a V3 is like there's a factory contract. And then if you create like ETH USDC pool, it creates a new contract. If you create like, ETH wrap Bitcoin pool, it creates a new pool. And then when you're doing a swap, because sometimes you do what's called a multi-hop swap. Like I have wrap Bitcoin and I want USDC. Maybe it goes wrap Bitcoin to ETH and then ETH to USDC, right? Sometimes that happens when there's no direct pool. Yeah. And here would be less efficient because you would have token transfers across multiple smart contracts versus here it's like one single contract. So anyways, these are more like nitty gritty things, but it makes it very powerful because I can write. So this like basket thing I told you about where we're letting you buy a basket of 10 assets. We let you do that with one swap. Like you do one swap and it does all these like 10 different swaps in one transaction. And you can do that by hitting one contract. So it's very gas efficient. So it's very interesting what they've built with V4. I think it's this is a question I've asked them is like, is there a Uniswap V5 or are we really at peak AMM? You know, because I really think I've like, anyways, as a developer, like, I don't code as much these days, but I'm also a Solidity developer. I like, this is some of the most beautiful code I've seen like ever, like in Solidity. Like I'm hard to impress. And like this code was very, because it introduced like completely new ideas about how they organize their code. But yeah, so V4 was very interesting. It's very powerful. But there's a little bit of friction. Like it's taken me, like I'm pretty experienced, but it's taken me like, a good like 3 to 6 months to like get a hand of like deeply understanding how everything works under the hood. But yeah, Uniswap was one of my favorite crypto companies. Like, I see. I'm sure you can hear that from how I speak.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Uniswap is like a OG for like, I mean, they created the whole AMM model. So yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, but I would not be surprised if they will have a V5. I think just like I feel like there's a trend in tech where company would kind of have to out innovate themselves, right? Even in the long run, with something new. We don't know what it is.
Well, so what's interesting to me though is that Uniswap is now split, right? So Uniswap, I don't know if you know this, but Uniswap has now the foundation and labs, which are much more like like back in the day, it was a bit like no one really knew which was which, but now it's very clear. Like foundation is focused on the protocol, so the smart contracts, especially the AMM smart contracts, periphery contracts. Labs runs the UI, the front end, if you go to uniswap.org, and their main focus is not on Uniswap protocol. I mean, not that much anymore. It's more on Unichain, right? It's more on their liquidity chain, which is like very innovative, right? But that's less Solidity code. It's more like protocol level code. And all the dynamics of creating a new ecosystem. So on the AMM side, I mean, I'm sure there will be another version. I'm just like, in my head, I'm trying to think like, how much more can you optimize this? I would think maybe leverage like that. That could be interesting, but it's very tricky to build in a decentralized way. But that would be my bet if there was one more thing that you could add to Uniswap.
I see. Yeah. Well, anyway, I think we just have to wait for them surprise. And then you also mentioned for Veraswap that you want to build some account abstraction feature, right? Like some.
Well, so we might just integrate AA. Yeah. So we might just add AA providers like smart wallets so that you don't have to pay gas fees. There are some kind of technically innovative things we're looking at, notably session keys. So this is the idea that like you log into the app, like the same way that you log into, like Polymarket or OpenSea, where like you sign in with Ethereum, right? You do a signature once, but then once you do that, you have to click the wallet confirm button ever again, or I mean not ever again, but like for an hour. So so session with smart wallets, what you can do is like you do one signature, and then you can have like a wallet take over, so the user doesn't have to like click all these MetaMask pop-ups. And so for 1 hour, like the front end is kind of free to do what it wants, in the sense that it can like execute your swaps without you having to like reconfirm all the time. So it depends on your security, obviously. If you're like, oh, I'm hardware wallet only, okay, don't do session key, just like approve every time. But it's a cool UX feature where the user doesn't have to get harassed with like MetaMask pop-ups all the time. Because I like to say like, oh, even if the transaction fee is like 0, like the fact that you get these wallet pop-ups is like not great, like relative to like Web2 UI. And then the other thing is like ability to, one thing we're trying to do is like I said, potentially like bridge your funds from multiple chains. And there's I'm a big fan of Kernel Smart Account from ZeroDev, which lets you do multi-chain user ops. So this is the idea that the user they click one, again, same idea. You click one pop-up, okay, one signature, but then you execute transactions on multiple chains at the same time. So you don't have to switch networks. You don't have to like click multiple times. It just executes that across multiple chains. So that's very interesting.
Interesting.
For abstraction.
Oh, interesting. I don't think I've seen that in action yet.
Yeah, because it's not standardized, right? So it's specific to a wallet implementation. So it's very specific to the kernel smart account from ZeroDev.
Oh, got it. Yeah, so you have to use that.
So the user account, so this is what's interesting about smart account, and this is something that I've been wrapping my head about, is really there's two ways to do smart accounts. One is like the user comes with their own smart account, right? So they come with like Coinbase Smart Wallet or MetaMask Smart Wallet, like MetaMask Smart Wallet just launched recently, right? Or whatever, right? The other is like you come in with like MetaMask, like EOA, like signer, standard signer, but then I just issue you a smart account that's like dApp specific. You can do that as well, right? So it's an interesting like paradigm where like I don't know which one is correct, which one isn't. I mean, both are possible. So in this scenario, if you don't have a smart wallet, we can just still issue one, and you still don't pay any gas fees.
Yeah. I think this is basically the new thing with the Pectra upgrade, right? With the
so with the Pectra, Pectra upgrade is kind of like that. Yes, that's correct. Pectra, the specific thing about Pectra is the idea that you get the same address, right? So that's the real crux of the issue. Where back in the day, if you had a smart wallet, whether it was it would have a different address, so that was a bit confusing.
Yes.
So Pectra, makes it much nicer. The issue with Pectra is like, and it's always an issue when you're integrating new EIPs, is that if you're trying to get broad chain support, there's going to be some chains that don't have it. Like all the OP stack chains, I think Arbitrum chains also, they're going forward with it very quickly, but like more niche chains might not like have the EIP live. Some, I don't know if BSC has it, for example. I mean, maybe they do, but like I'm just saying you don't necessarily get that. And then the other, for Pectra specifically, it also depends on the wallet because it's like has a specific signature scheme. So this is like always the challenge. You're like, okay, do I get the cutting edge? But then like, oh, is it going to break some things? So it's always a challenge to get like, backwards compatibility.
Gotcha. Yeah, but I think usually after a few months, I would imagine that like over maybe 70-80% of the chain would probably adopt it, right? Because certainly they don't want to be left behind, but then whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it depends because like some of them have their own, like very famous one is like ZK Sync. Like ZK Sync has like their own thing for like account abstraction.
That's true, yeah.
Right? They have their whole thing is like, everything is like their own way. And like, this is cool. I mean, they were first to market technically, but the problem is like, you're a developer that's like, I'm writing in Solidity, I want EVM support. And then, you go on their doc page, like, EVM compatible. And then they're like little asterisks. Oh, by the way, this, all these little exceptions, and you're like, it should take me hours to like get my code compatible. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I like their tech and stuff. It's very interesting, but I think there's also the practical sense of like, if you can stay, like this is what OP Stack and Arbitrum has been doing with the Orbit, is they try to stay as closely as possible to EVM equivalents. To really be fully compatible, like no opcode exceptions or stuff like that, which is like sometimes happens with certain chains where they like, they'll be like, hey, we're equivalent, but then like there's a bunch of edge cases that don't necessarily work.
Makes sense. Yeah, and I think with the previous, what is it, ESE 4337? I think I think many people were thinking that's gonna be like the one and on for all, but I feel like the main issue, but you also pointed it out, was that you had to use like a new wallet address, right, for a smart wallet. But now, like with the Pectra, you use the same wallet address,
correct? Yeah.
Which is much more seamless experience, right? Because like user, like probably not gonna try to remember like two different wallet address. But now I think that's I feel like that's one of the core issue that Pectra solves.
Yeah, for sure. That's the core issue for sure. That this makes it very easy to do that.
Cool. Yeah, and then who do you consider? I guess there's many other company building similar thing. Who do you consider to be competitors or people building
similar
in
to
like same space?
Veraswap? Yeah, so
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
say like the intent providers, so like Across, dBridge, Jumper, well, Li-Fi technically, like Jumper is just Li-Fi technically, it's like a UI on top of Li-Fi. So I would say those. You know, I think like some of these, like they're kind of locked into like intents, which is like I think they're cool, but like there's certain limitations. Like if we want to add like my goal is that like if you're a new token, so we have this other UI that like we don't promote, like this only for B2B. It's called VeraBridge, which is a bridge deployer. So my goal is like I have a token on Ethereum. My first problem is I want my token to go multi-chain because I want to access cheaper fees. I want to access different audiences that are like specific to these ecosystems, right? Like I know, like Kaya, for example, is huge in Asia. They work with work with what's it called, the phone app, like not WeChat, not Telegram.
Grab? I don't know which one you're talking about.
Kaya is like they're working with, forgot the name. It's like a big phone. It's like 100 million users in Taiwan and
NTT?
South Korea.
Oh, Taiwan? Line?
Line, yes, they work with Line, right? That's the Line blockchain,
okay.
like Kaya, or
okay.
like
Line.
BSC is huge, like in certain like ecosystems. So, anyways, my point is like you want to go multi-chain, you can go on VeraBridge. In one click, your token is now multi-chain. We deploy the bridge for you. Like there's a lot of bridging protocols that can't necessarily do that, or they couldn't before. We built that for Hyperlane initially. But the problem you have with that is like your token is now on this new chain, like on BSC or something like that, but people can't access the liquidity. Well, okay, I could call up the intent provider and be like, hey, can you add my token, please? Or you could just like put your token address on Veraswap and it'll work because like you have a liquidity pool already set up on Ethereum, let's just say, and we auto detect that, right? So my point is like I like systems where like you don't have to rely on, like we don't have any backend infra. Like you just interact with our UI and the chain. That's it. Like there's no Veraswap servers or whatever like that we can shut down or anything like that are critical. So that's the type of system I was trying to build. But I think the intent providers, they right now, because of where we are, like we're kind of still early, they have more tokens right now. But when we go live with V3 support, that should get flipped around its head. And the speed is a factor. So for stable coins and stuff like that, they're faster. So we might integrate them. Like we could add them as an option, and just figure out which is the fastest. What I really want to do eventually is just like figure out ways to change the DEX experience fundamentally, right? Like I said, this is kind of early on, but like think of ideas of like I said, either making it so you just buy, quick buy, or buying baskets. Because I think that's also a point of friction, which is that like if you're a traditional user, like a Web2 user that's getting you into crypto, you're not like, oh, I'm going to pick like this blockchain and this token and then this amount. And then like there's all these fees or whatever. It's like too complicated. So we want to make it like pretty easy, quick buy.
Makes sense.
So we're exploring ideas, but I would like it to be more than just like a one-stop shop that you go for trading is my point. Eventually a place where like, maybe we'll rebrand it and get you to build portfolios and stuff like that. But that's kind of the idea that's been running through my mind like past 2 weeks, especially because like there's a bunch of events here in New York about like there's a conference about like putting municipal bonds, like debt for cities on chain. Like the city of New York is going to issue their bonds on like the blockchain. Imagine that.
Nice.
you want to invest in New York infrastructure, like renew the subway, finance that. You can buy the New York municipal bonds. I mean, I don't know. It's just TBD. We'll see, but I think that will open up a huge amount of finance on chain.
Yeah, for sure. And then, what would you say you'll be like? So I guess you did mention like VeraBridge. What are you thinking about like the business model like for Veraswap?
So right now we're just heavily focused on just getting the product out, then drive volume. So mostly partnering with like these newer chains that don't necessarily have intent providers that are looking to attract users. Like these new chains that will pop up and they're like. Like for example, there's like Superseed. It's like an OP stack chain, like part of Super Chain ecosystem, recently launched like a few months ago. And they're like, hey, you can get users to take USDC and get wrapped Bitcoin in like one click, right? So we're working with work with these chains to promote. Our goal is to just generate volume right now. We don't take any fees at the moment, apart from like we don't take any fee. You get charged the Uniswap protocol fee, obviously, but you don't get charged the front end fee. So technically, it'll be cheaper than Uniswap, because Uniswap charge. Well, I mean, caveat depends on the routing, but usually it will be cheaper than Uniswap because if you use the Uniswap front end, you do get charged the front end fee with that goes to Uniswap Labs. And then eventually we'll probably add a cut on the volume, probably, that's how every DeFi protocol works on that side. But, it's not really like our priority at all, because like until you generate like millions in volume, there's kind of no point. And really, like I said, we really want to explore more changing that experience where like you're not just swapping A for B, but you're just like either just picking what token you want to buy or buying a basket and trying to build a more sticky experience where it's not just like, because like even myself, I know like sometimes I go on Uniswap, sometimes I go on 1inch. I'm like, kind of mostly the same price. I kind of just go based off like which has the easiest UX based on what token I'm trading.
Right.
So I'm not necessarily a sticky user, right? But if I can get a platform that gives me a better experience to kind of manage my assets, that can be more interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I think how to create that experience is probably going to be quite the tricky part, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is like, every startup says they want to do that, right? Like, it's like, I want to build, it's like, Robinhood for crypto or Wealthfront for crypto, like that,
Right.
But yeah. I think the problem is like people in crypto, like they're already in crypto, they have very low standard for quality in my view because of like, you're already like, and that's myself as well, right? Like I try to force myself to think this way, but myself, like, if my Uniswap trade takes a little bit of time, I don't care. I'm like, I'm using decentralized technology, but like the traditional user is like, I was on Venmo, I clicked the button, my friend got the money, like I didn't have to pick which chain. I'll give you a funny story. Like my friend was like, what was he doing? He had like a hardware wallet and he wanted to like sell a little bit of his like this token he bought, and he was like sending it to his MetaMask, right? I was like, okay, just send it to your MetaMask. Then you don't have to touch the smart wallet, the hardware wallet. That's the hard part is done. Then through MetaMask you'll do the rest. And so I thought, okay, copy the address, send it. So he sends it, and so he sees the balance go down on the smart wallet, right? And then he opens up his MetaMask and he's like, Leo, I don't see the token. Where is the token? And I'm like. And then I play a little bit. I act. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you lost the token. Maybe. And he's like, Leo, did I lose my? I'm like, no, bro. You just got to change the network. You got the wrong network configured. Your token's on Polygon. It's not Ethereum mainnet. And then he saw the token. But like, like that sounds stupid to us, but like for the average user, this this makes no freaking sense, right?
It's confusing.
It's confusing, and so. We're willing to tolerate that, but like average mainstream user isn't, and you got to put yourself in that mindset.
Yeah, it's true. I think chain abstraction will be one of the huge UX unlock for Web3 in the future whenever it's finally complete. Right? Yeah. When you don't really have to care about the chain you're on and just
so chain abstraction is very interesting because it's this very concrete thing, and like in certain sense, it's a very abstract thing in this other. What I mean by that is like from a concrete standpoint, like. We kind of already have the tech, like what I told you about, like the multi-chain signer ability with like the kernel smart account, where you do one signature and you can execute multiple transactions on multiple chains. That's a really cool feature, I think, because it's like critical. Because how could you even have chain abstraction where like if I do 2 transactions, I have to like switch chains or whatever, right? But then there's a more abstract thing, which I think is still an area of research, really. And I think a lot of dApps will kind of innovate their own way. Is like, what's the best user experience for that, right? So like, for example, like right now on Veraswap, one thing we did is kind of inspired by 1inch is we make you pick the token first and then the chain. Like you pick the token first and then the chain, which I think is easier from a user perspective because they don't want to think about the chain. But like, what if you just pick the token and you don't even worry about the chain? Like right now, we still kind of need that because we got to route like where we're bridging and stuff like that. But there's a potential where you just build an experience where like the user just picks a token and we just send it to like whatever chain we think they want or that's like more convenient, right? There's always that like gray area where it's like, how much do I want to abstract? How do I do I assume the user's behavior, or do I make them, maybe you pick a few chains, or like my favorite chains are Base, Optimism, right? And then when you pick tokens, we're trying to like take them from there or send them there. But that's like an area of research I think that is that still has to be explored.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, that one is really tricky. I don't think we have a lot of answer. But then many protocols are like working and doing research. I think it's like a research working group or something on that topic too, for them to try.
Yeah, I just think it's more like, I think the big thing is like you need more user research, like just put it into people's hands and see how they react, and not like committees about making standards necessarily, but more so. Though, I mean, there are a few things, like for example, interop. I told you about like superchain interop, right? Like the upgrade that's going to come to Unichain that's going to like speed up the bridging. One thing they have is they have this like superchain ERC20 standard, which makes it so that, and you can deploy like a multi-chain token across superchain. So like it'll be on Unichain, Optimism, etc. But it has the same address. So that's already a huge improvement, right? Like the token will have the same address across all chains, which like, it's not the first time, people have done it. Like you have to, like it's possible already, but like they built that so it's easy for developers to do that, right? Because like I know how to do that. You have to do like this thing called deterministic deployment, where like you make it so that like the address is always the same, but like it's a bit tricky. Like most, like if you're a junior dev, you don't necessarily know about this. But here, like they have SDKs and very nice tools where like in a few clicks, your token is on multiple chains, but it has the same address. And then for the user, it's easy because they don't have to like worry about like, which USDC am I using? It's always the same.
True. Because there could be like 20 different versions of USDC.
Yeah.
Depending on what bridge you use. Yeah. Oh man.
Exactly.
That's a big mess. Cool. Yeah, maybe let's switch over to like the human side of your company. Just curious, like you said, the company is like all over, very distributed. How many people working for Veraswap?
Yeah, so we're about 1, 2, 3, 4 people. So 3 developers.
Very lean team.
We're pretty lean. We're a bit bigger, but we kind of scaled down after we pivoted to focus on Veraswap. Like I said, we're building a few other things in the past. And we work for a long time, and we've done we work remotely sometimes, but then we work in person as well, kind of on and off, especially around like conferences and hackathons, where hackathons we won't do them all the time. Like I'm not like a series hackathon person that does like, I've met some people, they do the whole like what's it called, ETH like the ETH Global Tour.
ETH Global.
They do like every city. Like they go here and they're like, yeah, next week I'm going to this one. I'm like, bro, how do you like? I can't function, like, because the hackathon, you work so hard, it gets exhausting. But I do like to do some time to time, just as a more research exercise to see what's the cutting edge tech.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like these big tech companies like Google and stuff. They'll tell people like, hey, you have to spend like 20-30% of your time just building something new. Like that's what Google does. For example, there's a bunch of like big open source things like what's it called, like Protobuf, for example, came out. It's like a data standard that Google came out with. There's a bunch of like projects of Google,
even Gmail as well.
Yeah, they came out of hackathons, right? Like not hackathons, but like my point is like getting people on your team to just like think about technology that's related, but that's not necessarily like, it's not like scoped out by a project manager. And so with these like the Veraswap thing initially came out with our work with Hyperlane. Like I met their CTO, Nam, and he was very friendly and walked us through exactly how everything works, and that gave us a lot of ability to build, be very creative with it, and build Veraswap, the original version, at the hackathon. So yeah, we work sometimes remotely, sometimes in person, and we've known each other for a long time. So good work dynamic there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm a bit wary of scaling too much until we get kind of more traction. Right now we're at a good kind of phase, and then once we're probably going to raise some funding and hopefully go to market once we are kind of V1 ready, which will be pretty soon.
Fair point. Yeah, and so with a small and lean team, what do you consider to be the main challenges for your team? Or
great question. Well, so sometimes it can be like, you have to learn how to prioritize, I think, right? Because like when you're a big team, like you can be like, oh, we're going to do this like huge sprint, add all these tickets. Where when you're a small team, the advantage, you have like pretty good communication, I would say. Even though like the remote does add some friction, and I'm not necessarily the best communicator, my team will tell you that, but I feel like it's much more manageable still, where I can even just like, I don't have to necessarily always like plan everything written. I can just like text and be like, hey, by the way, do this. Like, oh, we should think about this. And like naturally, you can keep a few things in your head, right? But once you go to like, I don't know, 20, 30 different things, you can't just keep that all in your head. Then you have to go Jira and start scoping things out. We do, have product management, like we scope things out and stuff like that. But my point is, there's less of that miscommunication, right? It's when you have these big teams, sometimes like these two teams start working independently, and when they try to combine their code, things kind of break. So we don't get that frequently, but we have limited people and therefore limited time. So we have to prioritize and think about what we're going to do that adds the most value, right? And sometimes be like, okay, is it worth it or is it not? And sometimes it is worth it, but it's going to take a few weeks and then we have to push back deadline, right? Like Uni V3, it took a while, but like, I think that was very important because like we lose out on like 90% of the market if we don't have that. But other things we've sometimes cut out, right? Things like intents, we're like, okay, for now, that doesn't matter right now, even though it would be very important to get a very smooth UX. Our goal is not to just necessarily compete with like Jumper right now. Like we're not necessarily in a rush for that, right? This is a problem that will keep existing. Our focus is really building our tech the right way for now. And then what else? I don't know, small team, personal team, like we've worked for a long time, so sometimes there are some frictions that arise, but I don't know, we've kept pushing forward, I would say.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good to hear. Yeah, I'm sure with every team, there's always some sort of challenges, whether big or small. Yeah.
And sometimes you gotta rest. Like sometimes people not burn out. Like we haven't anyone, but like after the hackathon, for example, like we took a few days off, right? Because like hackathon, we worked through the weekend, worked all night.
Yeah.
You gotta take breaks sometimes. I know at the beginning I said like, oh, workaholic. Like I don't, I like Jamie Dimon, who's like, don't like work-life balance, but like sometimes you do need it. Like,
for sure.
Everything.
No, I mean, I've joined a few of the ETH Global Hackathon. Yeah, so I know the feeling. Yeah, like working 36 hours straight and then like not even getting any sleep and just barely functioning. Absolutely, exactly afterwards. Yeah, so you do need some break afterwards. Cool. And then in the future, like how do you see the Web3 DEX scene kind of evolve in the future?
The Web3 DEX scene. How do I look at it?
Evolving in the future.
TradFi, securitized assets, like RWAs, right? I think that's killer. I think if you have that, if you have that, like you can really bring Web2 people on board. Because again, in the US, people are going to be like, I have my brokerage account, I don't care. But if you're in any other country where like it's kind of a pain to get access to the US stock market, it will be fantastic. I mean, if you're Canadian, you can figure it out, but like there's tons of other countries, tons of capital, and then that pairs with DeFi, so you can get a mixed portfolio of crypto and stocks and bonds and stuff like that. Again, I have no like intel on this, but I have seen stuff happening with the new administration, like opinions coming out from this is just public information from the SEC chairman and stuff like that kind of point to like potentially getting, you already have some RWAs on chain, right? What I'm talking about is like, what I'm really excited about is a system where you can have the same legal framework for stable coins be applied to these types of assets, or at least something similar. Because the current RWAs, they're all like fully KYC'd. Like you literally cannot touch the token if you're not KYC'd, and you can't even move it necessarily, or unless you move it to another. So it's just like a settlement network. It's like there's no difference between this, that, and like centralized database. I mean, apart from maybe a little bit of transparency, I guess. What I would like is like you can keep the regulation, like the same way that USDC, like they can freeze funds, they can unlock funds, stuff like that. Like if you're blacklisted, you're blacklisted. Like if you're from sanctioned country, but issuance and remittance, so creating the token, burning the token, that's regulated. But then if you want to go ahead and trade on Uniswap, move on Uniswap, and if it's not sanctioned addresses, that be permission open. And if that is open, then we can build really interesting things, because we can build, like I said, DEXs that have these assets, but also portfolio management, and then ETFs. And then if you have ETFs, there's also interesting questions about like tax advantages, because like if you buy an ETF, like if you buy the top 500 stocks, like S&P 500, that rebalances. That will like, if Google goes up, it'll buy more Google. If like Google goes up, Apple goes down, the market cap of Google is higher proportion, so it'll buy Google. So it does all these trades to like balance your portfolio to this kind of mix of the market. Yep. If you do that manually today with crypto, every trade is like a tax event. If you do that with crypto, every trade you do, right? But if there's like an automated vault that's like an ETF that has like a fixed set of rules, again, I'm not a lawyer, but it could be argued that within this scope, there is no taxable event within those trades. It's still taxed like when you like sell the ETF, right? Like I'm not saying like you're getting away with paying your crypto taxes if you're in the US, but like it makes it so you can have balanced managed portfolio that doesn't incur like taxes all the time, every time it's rebalancing effectively. So that's quite interesting to me as well. Just bringing TradFi into DeFi.
Makes sense. I think it's going to be huge. I mean, moment when we have a lot of.
Well, when again, there's always this question. Like, it's not like a new topic, right? It's like not something like I'd be completely foolish to say, oh, this is like brand new. No, like there's been companies trying to do this for like years, right? I mean, the only reason people are more serious about it is just like SEC is more friendly, like and that's how it is. So people are going to try to take advantage, seize the opportunity, and innovate.
Makes sense.
But we'll see. I don't know. Cool. I'm not really in that space. Like I'm interested in like, hey, someone's going to build the infra for that, hopefully, and then can I build on-chain stuff on top of that?
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll look forward to that day. I guess we may have to wait another few years,
probably, right? Because I think at least like 6 to 9 months, I would say. Yeah, at least 6 to 9 months.
Yeah. Because I think I don't think any of the like framework regulation move that fast. So it's like probably gonna take
Well, you'd be surprised how things move quickly.
Well,
some donor buys a bunch of Trump coin and then suddenly the policy changes.
Okay. Well, that's true. Yeah,
I don't know. I'm just going by like news articles,
Okay.
But I'm just saying that there's a lot of like crypto influence in the current administration, and so we'll see if that falls through onto something. I'm not American. I'm not involved in U.S. politics, so I don't know. I'm just observer, and If people do manage, like for example, like Coinbase issued like wrapped Bitcoin. I mean, it's not a stock, but like you can see that they're going more into this kind of like wrapped, like there's like Coinbase Bitcoin now, CBBTC, instead of like just wrapped Bitcoin. And so like maybe they're going to expand into doing more stuff in that space.
Yeah.
Well, who knows, man? I'm just being hopeful. So.
Yeah, well, I think we all being hopeful, right? Being in Web3, we have to be.
Yeah, but I don't want to just be hopeful. I want to get results eventually. You can't just be a wishful thinker. That's my point.
Yeah, that one is tricky, though. I would say, it's like really not in the hands of the builders, but the regulation. But anyway, 2 more questions before we close the show. Since you've been a builder for a pretty long time in Web3, do you have any advice for you want to build a Web3 company?
Build a Web3. Oh, that's a very broad question. I guess like for me specific. For me specifically, right, I was more because it depends what type of builder you are. This is my point regarding your question. Are you like a very product person that's like going to do the engineering, or are you more a business person that's like you find a technical team or something like that? I think in the Web3 space, I mean, I'm obviously biased from where I come, but like I think that you still need a way to be able to build it. And this is more general entrepreneurship. This is like YC advice, like Y Combinator would say this, which is like, hey, if you need money to build your MVP, like that's a you problem. That's not like a fundraising problem. Like you should be able to build your MVP yourself. If you're not technical, that doesn't mean you should quit. You should just find someone you can work with. Like there's still a lot of non-technical stuff to work with. The reason I bring up the technical is like usually the most, it's the one that's like make or break. Like the other stuff you can kind of like learn. Like some people are more experts on it, but like you can figure out on the way. But like to build the product is kind of a critical thing. Obviously AI is very helpful these days. So like, again, I'm not a big vibe coder, but there's many things you can build with vibe coding. Like, I'm not gonna lie, right? Like, would I build Veraswap with vibe coding? Probably not. There's a lot of smart contract infra and security related. But, maybe you're building like a more social platform that like has a few Web3 features, right? Not everything has to be like pure smart contracts. Like, I don't know, maybe you build an event platform and you can connect like your wallet. Yeah, you can build that pretty quickly with vibe coding. So, all depends. What I would say is definitely this is something I've been trying to improve on, is kind of reach out to people, like you, and just like build a network and get people to try things out. Like I showed you the little demo back in the day, I would be like embarrassed. I wouldn't show it. I'd be like, no, it has to be perfect. But no, you can't chase perfection. So even though I have all these like improvements in my head, you do have like, we still have it live on Veraswap right now. And we're going to go live the next version soon, even though it might not have full account abstraction or something like that, but it'll be a working product. So yeah, you want to go live and get user feedback as quickly as possible. And then the last one, this is a classic one. This is one I hold dear to my heart. I mean, I've heard it before, but I think it's the one that I see is shared across like many people I've listened to that are independent is, and this is like, if you're really in it for this, is like, just like persistence. Like you just got to like literally keep taking the punches like every time you fail and just like keep going. Like Rocky Balboa. I don't know if you know the movie Rocky, he keeps getting knocked down. And then So yeah, it's like, so I would think that that's kind of a critical one. Because a lot of failures, a lot of
awesome. Yeah, for sure.
No one is like this. There's a lot of and then
up
and then back to all of that. And that's not just price, right? By the way, like, obviously people think about the crypto cycles, but there's also just like what's specific to you.
Anyways, because that's true. No, I think this is great. Yeah, like you said, I think the build, measure, learn cycle, right? You need to want to complete it as many as possible so that you can get the feedback. Yeah, it makes sense. And then also, just showing the product even when it's not like finished or polished yet, which also make a lot of sense as well. Yeah, cool.
I mean, there's a famous quote from like 0 to 1, which is like, if you launch and you're like not embarrassed by your first launch, it means you launched too late.
Yeah, that's true. I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah. You don't want to. Yeah, because if you take too much time building, it might be building things.
Well, it's just the opportunity cost, right? You could have launched earlier and got that feedback earlier.
Yeah, correct. Cool. And final question: where can people follow you and know your company?
So you can follow me on X on Twitter at Proof of Leo. So kind of like proof of work, PROOF of OF Leo, Proof of Leo. And then you can follow us on Veraswap. And our Twitter is VeraBridge_IO right now, though we will be changing that soon. So VeraBridge_IO on Twitter. Hopefully we can link that in the podcast or something. And then Proof of Leo on Twitter. That's it.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure to put those links in the show notes down below here so that people can follow along. Once again, Leo, it's been really fun having you on the show, chatting about anything from decentralized exchange, account abstraction, the future of swapping and trading on chains. And yeah, it's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Len. Thank you for all your questions. Very engaging discussion.
Yeah, it's been fun. And we're back to my studio. What do you guys think about Veraswap that Leo and his team is building? Will you be using it to swap or bridge cross-chain? Please let us know in the comments below. For the next episode, we'll be talking to Tara Guru, founder and CEO of Soundbeats. Soundbeats is a Web3 creator platform that leverages AI, music, gaming to empower artists, creators, gamers, developers, and users in the creator economy. If you enjoyed this episode, please give a like and subscribe. It would mean a lot to us. Thank you for watching and see you next time.